teach him his ABCs, and then send him back to Long Island up the road from Philadelphia.
Bernard Hopkins, the executioner, the alien, B-Hop. Whatever name you remember him by, one thing's for sure, he's one of the most polarizing figures in boxing history. A legend who defied age, fought into his 50s, and outsmarted fighters half his age, Hopkins commanded both admiration and resentment.
Joe is not smart by not using his jab. He's taller than Hopkins. Why would you put your head in there? You know he's his head, but already.
His cerebral style, trash talk, and rough, often frustrating tactics didn't make him many friends inside the ring. Some called him a genius, others called him impossible to deal with. In today's video, we'll dive into the top 10 boxers who hated Bernard Hopkins, exploring the rivalries, bad blood, and pure boxing drama that defined his incredible career.
Offense, but they just weren't the same guy anymore, and there was no...
You live in upstate New York.
1. Roy Jones Jr. The tension between Bernard Hopkins and Roy Jones Jr. stretched over 2 decades, one of the sport's most complex rivalries. Their first fight in 1993 saw a young Hopkins lose a unanimous decision to the flashier Jones. But what fueled the hate wasn't just the defeat, it was the way Jones carried himself afterward. Hopkins felt disrespected by Jones's arrogance, while Jones dismissed Hopkins as too boring and too defensive. When they finally met again in 2010, the animosity had only grown. Hopkins dominated that rematch.
Broken a bone in his wrist. Straight right hand healed, not 100, 90% healed as he comes into this.
2. Joe Calzaghe. When Joe Calzaghe moved up to light heavyweight, Bernard Hopkins told him bluntly before their 2008 fight, "I'll never lose to a white boy." That comment lit a fire under Calzaghe and sparked one of the most personal rivalries of Hopkins's career. Inside the ring, it was a clash of styles. Calzaghe's volume punching versus Hopkins's craft and counters. Outside, it was psychological warfare. Calzaghe accused Hopkins of being dirty and a cheat, while Hopkins mocked Calzaghe's slapping punches. The fight itself was ugly and close, but when the decision went Calzaghe's way, the animosity didn't fade. Hopkins insisted he'd been robbed, and Calzaghe walked away from boxing still bitter about Hopkins's pre-fight insult.
Back does not like, and these punches, head and body, are thudding home.
3. Chad Dawson. In 2011, Hopkins faced Chad Dawson in one of the strangest fights of his career, and one that created serious hostility. Early in the bout, Dawson lifted Hopkins and dropped him, dislocating Bernard's shoulder in the process. The fight was ruled a TKO for Dawson at first, then later changed to a no contest. Dawson accused Hopkins of faking the injury, saying, "He's a con man. He doesn't fight. He acts Hopkins naturally," fired back, calling Dawson a coward who couldn't handle a real fight. Their rematch the following year settled things in Dawson's favor, but the mutual hatred never cooled. Even in retirement, Dawson still takes shots at Hopkins whenever his name comes up.
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, ladies and gentlemen, here is the current NABF light heavyweight champion, Eric.
4. Jean Pascal. The feud between Bernard Hopkins and Jean Pascal was pure entertainment. Fiery press conferences, racial tensions, and post-fight chaos. Their 2010 and 2011 bouts were filled with controversy, from knockdowns to accusations of steroid use. Pascal famously called Hopkins an old man with tricks, while Hopkins accused Pascal of being afraid and lacking the mental toughness of a true champion. After Hopkins beat him in the rematch to reclaim the light heavyweight title, Pascal grudgingly admitted Hopkins' skill but still refused to shake his hand in the ring. It was a rivalry that defined 2 eras colliding, and neither man walked away friends. 5. Kelly Pavlik. When Kelly Pavlik was at his peak, he was the undefeated, hard-hitting star from Youngstown, Ohio, and many believed he'd destroy the 43-year-old Hopkins in 2008. But Hopkins humiliated him for 12 rounds, outboxing him with ease. Pavlik never forgave him. After the fight, he admitted, "I couldn't hit him clean. He made me look stupid." That frustration boiled into resentment. Pavlik felt Hopkins mocked him and embarrassed him on a global stage. Even years later, when discussing his career, Pavlik still mentioned that fight as one of the darkest moments, not because he lost, but because of how much he hated the man who schooled him.
He's gonna stop the fight. That is correct. There's a brand new middleweight champion. He's from Youngstown, Ohio.
6. Oscar De La Hoya. Hopkins and De La Hoya were business partners at Golden Boy Promotions, but before that, they were rivals in the ring. In 2004, they fought for middleweight supremacy, and Hopkins ended the night with a vicious body shot knockout. But what really caused tension was Hopkins' attitude afterward. De La Hoya admitted he didn't appreciate Hopkins' arrogance or the way he gloated about the finish. Behind the scenes, there were clashes over promotional control and decision-making at Golden Boy. Although they maintained a professional relationship, De La Hoya once said, "Bernard was always the smartest guy in the room, and he knew it." That comment perfectly summed up their uneasy respect and lingering dislike.
Round one. Vamos a conectarle. It's deep and it's wide.
7. Antonio Tarver. When Antonio Tarver faced Hopkins in 2006, he was coming off a career-defining win over Roy Jones Jr. He expected to crush the older Hopkins easily, but what happened was the opposite. Hopkins dominated Tarver, dropping him and winning every round. The bad blood started even before the fight. Hopkins shaved Tarver's head at a press event, mocking him publicly. Tarver saw it as humiliating and never forgave him. After the loss, Tarver accused Hopkins of fighting dirty and using old man tricks. To this day, Tarver still refers to Hopkins as that annoying technician who ruined his momentum.
Jones. Then you see him go to the body, and as long as Roy Jones is...
8. Jermaine Taylor Hopkins lost his middleweight titles to Jermaine Taylor in 2005 after 2 controversial decisions. Hopkins believed he was robbed both times and publicly accused Taylor of being a paper champion. Taylor, in return, grew to despise Hopkins' arrogance and endless excuses. The rivalry wasn't just professional, it became deeply personal. Hopkins refused to give Taylor any credit, and Taylor felt disrespected for years. When asked in a later interview which opponent he disliked the most, Taylor didn't hesitate. Bernard Hopkins.
Get the former world champion! Taylor in trouble! Front!
9. Sergey Kovalev. At age 49, Hopkins faced the ferocious Sergey Kovalev in 2014, and it turned into a masterclass in punishment. Kovalev dominated every round, knocking Hopkins down early and taunting him throughout the fight. But the tension between them had begun long before fight night. Hopkins accused Kovalev of being just power, no brain, while Kovalev called Hopkins a dirty old man who thinks too much. After the fight, Kovalev refused Hopkins' handshake, calling him an arrogant legend. For Kovalev, it wasn't just victory, it was revenge for years of verbal disrespect.
The executioner, Hopkins!
10. Felix Trinidad. Hopkins and Trinidad's rivalry in 2001 wasn't fueled by personal hatred at first. It was about national pride. The Puerto Rican icon Trinidad was adored by millions, and Hopkins' pre-fight antics, especially when he threw down the Puerto Rican flag, turned admiration into fury. After Hopkins dominated and stopped Trinidad, fans accused him of disrespecting their hero. Trinidad himself admitted he never respected Hopkins again after that incident. Though they never fought again, the animosity between their camps lingered for years. Hopkins' victory made history, but it also made him an enemy to an entire fan base.
From Eubank, some weight away to him.
This Edwards a cruiserweight, that's 2 weights up to...
If you enjoyed this look into the rivalries that defined Bernard Hopkins' career, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more incredible stories from the world of boxing.